Most people believe they fail because life is too hard, but the truth is much quieter. You do not fail because you lack strength. You fail because you make a promise to yourself in the morning, and by evening, you negotiate with your own weakness. Every time you say you will start tomorrow, a small piece of your self-respect fades away. We spend our lives waiting for a sudden burst of motivation, hoping an invisible force will finally push us to change. But inspiration is a fleeting visitor. It comes and goes as it pleases, leaving you exactly where you started. If you are tired of meeting the version of yourself who keeps giving up, this message is for you. It is time to stop treating your own word like it is optional. This is how you stay consistent for yourself. 1. The illusion of motivation and the root of self-trust. We live in a world that worships motivation. Every day, millions of people wake up, look at their goals, and wait for a feeling. They wait for a surge of energy, a sudden spark of inspiration, or a perfectly aligned moment to finally take action. They treat motivation like a savior that will magically descend and make the hard work feel easy. But relying on motivation is a dangerous game. Motivation is nothing more than an emotion, and like all emotions, it is entirely unreliable. It is the weather of the mind. Some days it is sunny and bright, and you feel as though you could conquer the world. Other days, it is dark, stormy, and heavy. If your actions are dictated by the weather of your mind, your life will always be unstable. Motivation is a visitor. It knocks on your door, stays for a cup of coffee, and leaves without warning. You cannot build a solid foundation on a guest who refuses to stay. Discipline, however, is the resident of the house. Discipline is the one who wakes up, sweeps the floor, and goes to work long after the visitor has left. Discipline does not ask if you feel ready. It does not care if the morning is cold, if your body is tired, or if your mind is noisy. Discipline simply looks at the path and asks what you decided when your mind was clear. To stay consistent, you must dethrone the false god of motivation and start serving the silent master of discipline. You must stop waiting to feel good before you do good. This brings us to the quietest and most devastating consequence of inconsistency. It is not about failing to achieve a specific goal. It is about the destruction of your internal ledger. Inside your mind, there is a quiet accountant keeping track of every promise you make and every promise you break. Every time you say you will wake up at dawn and instead hit the snooze button, a silent note is taken. Every time you say you will read, study, or train, but choose distraction instead, a tiny withdrawal is made from your account of self-trust. One broken promise does not look dangerous. One skipped day does not look like destruction. You call it rest, you call it taking a break, or you blame it on a bad mood. But beneath the surface, a quiet tragedy is unfolding. Your subconscious mind stops believing you. When your words no longer carry weight in your own mind, you become a stranger to yourself. You try to set a new goal, but a quiet voice inside whispers that you will not follow through. You have taught yourself to be unreliable. Self-respect is not created by repeating empty affirmations in front of a mirror. Self-respect is created by undeniable evidence. Every small promise kept becomes a brick in the fortress of your character. When you do what you said you were going to do, especially when it is inconvenient, you are signaling to your deepest self that you are someone who can be trusted. Consistency is the process of rebuilding that trust, one small stone at a time. To truly master consistency, you must undergo a profound shift in how you view yourself. Consistency is not something you do. It is someone you become. Most people focus entirely on the action. They say they want to lose weight, write a book, or build a business. But actions are heavy when they do not match your internal identity. If you view yourself as a lazy person who is forcing yourself to work hard, the friction will eventually burn you out. The consistent person has made a fundamental shift in identity. They have drawn a line in the sand and declared a new truth about who they are. They do not say they are trying to be disciplined. They say they are a person who does what must be done. When the alarm rings and the bed is warm, they do not debate with their feelings. The debate was settled long ago. A person becomes what they repeatedly return to when the excitement fades. You are not what you post on social media, you are not what you tell your friends you are planning to do, and you are not your grandest dreams. You are the quiet, unglamorous actions you return to when nobody is watching. If you return to excuses, excuses become your master. If you return to distraction, distraction becomes your reality. But if you return to your practice, even with trembling hands, an imperfect mind, and a tired body, then that practice becomes your home. You must stop trying to change your habits and start changing your identity. Decide who you are, and then prove it to yourself every single day with silent, undeniable proof. 2. The architecture of true discipline. Once you have decided to build a foundation of self-trust, you must understand how to construct the actual architecture of discipline. And the first thing you must do is recognize the trap of grandiosity. The human ego loves a grand performance. It thrives on drama and massive declarations. We often tell ourselves that starting tomorrow, we will wake up before dawn, meditate for an hour, run 10 miles, read 50 pages, and completely transform our lives. This is not discipline. This is emotional intoxication. We get high on the idea of the person we wish we were, rather than doing the actual work of confronting the person we currently are. The ego builds a mountain so steep that when we inevitably fail to climb it on the very first day, we have a built-in excuse to quit. We tell ourselves the routine was just too hard. But the truth is, the routine was a lie from the beginning. You cannot build a lifelong structure on a foundation of theatrical promises. People fail because they design habits for a superhuman version of themselves that does not exist. The secret to true consistency is so profoundly simple that most people reject it entirely. You must make your promises so small that your pride cannot turn them into a performance. This is the power of the micro-promise. If you cannot endure a grueling 1-hour workout, train your body for 10 minutes. If you cannot focus long enough to read 50 pages, sit in silence and read 2. If your mind rejects meditating for half an hour, close your eyes for 3 minutes. The ego hates small beginnings because small beginnings do not impress anybody. But your future is not built by impressing an audience. It is built by repetition. When you lower the barrier to entry, you bypass the brain's natural resistance to discomfort. You eliminate the friction that keeps you frozen. You are simply laying a single stone in the foundation of your character. A single stone may look insignificant to the untrained eye, but without those small, quiet stones, no great temple can ever stand. You are not trying to conquer the world in a single day. You are simply training your nervous system to obey your word. As you begin to lay these small stones, you will inevitably encounter one of the most sophisticated traps of the human mind. Perfectionism. Many people wear perfectionism like a badge of honor. They disguise it as having incredibly high standards. They convince themselves that if they cannot do something flawlessly, it is not worth doing at all. But in the quiet reality of the mind, perfectionism is simply fear dressed up in a tailored suit. It is the fear of looking foolish. It is the fear of starting small. It is the deep-seated fear of being ordinary at the beginning. Because you are afraid of producing something imperfect, you wait. You wait for the perfect schedule, the perfect state of mind, the perfect environment. And while you wait for the perfect conditions, your life quietly passes you by. You must understand that a messy, imperfect action taken today will always defeat a flawless intention delayed until tomorrow. Do not worship the perfect routine. Worship the willingness to show up poorly and do the work anyway. Consistency is not about never breaking the chain. It is about the speed of your return when the chain inevitably breaks. When your day is chaotic, when your schedule falls apart, and when you can only give a fraction of your effort, you do the practice anyway. It is in the messiness of the process, in the refusal to let perfect be the enemy of good, that your true, unshakable strength is forged. 3. The physics of action and the dry land. There is a fundamental misunderstanding about how human energy works. We are conditioned to believe that emotion is the engine and action is merely the wheels. We think we must feel confident before we step onto the stage. We believe we must feel energized before we begin to train, and we assume we must have total clarity before we commit. But the physics of human action operates in reverse. You are waiting for a door to open while you are already holding the key in your hand. Action creates confidence. Commitment creates clarity. Movement creates energy. If you wait until you feel ready, you will spend your entire life waiting on the sidelines. You must begin while your mind is still arguing with you. Begin while your emotions are complaining and while your old habits are shouting for you to stop and rest. You do not need to silence the inner voice of doubt before you take a step. You simply need to stop obeying it. Let the weak voice tell you that the task is uncomfortable. The deeper voice within you knows that the task is necessary. As you begin to take action without waiting for the feeling, you will soon cross into the most dangerous territory of any journey. It is a place where dreams are quietly abandoned and where most people surrender. This place is dry land. At the beginning of any new endeavor, your energy is remarkably high because the idea is fresh and exciting. In the end, your energy is high again because the results are visible and the reward is finally within reach. But between the thrill of the start and the glory of the finish, there is a vast, empty desert. The dry land is where the work feels completely ordinary. The progress feels painfully slow, and your reflection in the mirror looks the same as it did a month ago. Your old self tempts you to return to comfort, and the heaviest burden of all is that nobody is noticing your effort. This dry land decides everything. Most people quit right here. They look around at the lack of immediate results, they turn back, and they call their retreat wisdom. They tell themselves that perhaps this path was simply not meant for them. But the path was meant for them. They simply wanted to taste the fruit before they took the time to grow the roots. You cannot rush the roots. You must cross the dry land without demanding entertainment from it. Do not ask the path to prove its worth to you every single hour. Do not ask for applause from an empty room. Walk one step, then another, and then another. The person who crosses this desert becomes rare, because they learn to survive on something stronger than motivation. They survive on devotion. The truth that nobody wants to accept is that real discipline looks incredibly boring. We want consistency to look like a roaring fire, wild and unstoppable. But consistency is a quiet, steady lamp burning in a dark room. It is the willingness to endure boredom. It is the compound effect of ordinary, unglamorous days stacked on top of one another. The days that ultimately build your identity are not the days when you feel like an unstoppable warrior. The days that forge your character are the days when your actions are tired, your mind is distracted, and your effort is completely invisible to the outside world. Anyone can act when the wind is at their back and the crowd is cheering. The real training begins when the wind is pushing hard against your chest, the crowd has gone home, and you refuse to be moved backward. 4. The ecosystem of consistency. The battle for consistency is rarely fought in the middle of the day. It is almost always won or lost in the very first moments after you wake up. How you begin your morning teaches your mind who is in command. If your first act of the day is a surrender, the rest of your day will be forced to fight an uphill battle. When you wake up and immediately reach for a screen, scrolling through the curated lives, endless opinions, and loud noise of other people, you are giving away your most precious resource. Your attention is your life force. Stop donating it to strangers before you have invested any of it into your own path. You must guard the first gate of the morning. Rise when you promised yourself you would rise. It does not matter if your morning routine is perfectly optimized or incredibly simple. What matters is that your morning contains one deliberate, non-negotiable act of self-command. Sit in silence, drink a glass of water, write down your deepest focus for the day. Take total control of your internal narrative before the chaos of the outside world is allowed to enter your mind. But even the most disciplined mind will eventually break if it is planted in a toxic environment. Do not pretend you are stronger than the room you keep building around yourself. If your environment feeds your weakness all day long, you will spend your entire life fighting completely unnecessary battles. Willpower is not an infinite well that you can draw from endlessly. It is a fragile, finite resource that drains away with every single temptation you are forced to actively resist. A truly serious person does not rely entirely on pure willpower. A serious person designs an ecosystem of consistency. You must become an architect of your surroundings. Engineer the conditions of your life to make the right action feel effortless and the wrong action incredibly difficult. Remove the objects, apps, and distractions that repeatedly defeat you. Keep the tools for your growth highly visible and bury your temptations out of reach. If a certain habit or a specific environment weakens your discipline, stop pretending it is harmless. Your environment is either functioning as a temple for your focus or a trap for your potential. If you rely purely on brute mental strength to navigate a room full of distractions, you are not being a warrior. You are being careless with your future. As you build this private ecosystem, you must also learn to protect it with absolute silence. We live in a culture that demands constant broadcasting. We feel an urgent need to announce our grand transformations to the world before we have even laid a single brick. But words are not light things. They carry immense weight, and when you spend them too early, you sabotage your own growth. When you tell everyone what you are going to become, your brain receives a premature wave of satisfaction. You experience the emotional reward and the intoxicating praise for an identity you have not yet earned. This false satisfaction destroys your hunger. You taste the applause of the crowd, and suddenly, you no longer possess the deep desire to do the silent, agonizing labor required to actually build the result. Speak less, promise less, declare less, and fulfill more. Let your roots grow deep in the dark. There is a raw, unmatched power in hidden work. It purifies your intention and demands brutal honesty. It forces you to answer a terrifying question. Would you still do this hard work if nobody ever knew, if nobody ever clapped, and if you never received any credit? Hidden work reveals whether you truly want to grow, or if you simply want the world to view you as someone who is growing. Keep your practice private until it is utterly unshakable. Let your eventual results do all the shouting. 5. The art of the return and the ultimate freedom. No matter how carefully you design your environment, and no matter how pure your intentions are, you will eventually stumble. You are human, and the unpredictable chaos of life will break your rhythm. The true test of your consistency is not a flawless streak of perfect days. It is your mastery over the art of the return. When you break a promise to yourself, miss a day of training, or fall backward into an old, comfortable pattern, the undisciplined mind immediately declares a total failure. It looks at the broken streak and whispers that everything is ruined, so you might as well abandon the whole week. But you must understand that a slip is not a fall. Missing one day is an isolated event. Missing 2 days is a choice. Missing 3 days is a new identity. Do not worship the perfect, unbroken routine. Worship the rapid, unapologetic return. Return when you fall. Return when you lose focus. Return when you feel ashamed. The return itself is the muscle you are building. It is the exact difference between the person who grows stronger through adversity and the person who simply collects regrets. Regret is an incredibly heavy burden because it is the weight of unused power. You do not feel regret simply because you failed. You feel regret because something deep inside your spirit knows exactly what you are capable of achieving. It shows you the painful distance between your true potential and your current daily pattern. But do not drown in that regret. Do not look backward and say that you have wasted too much time. Use your regret as an alarm bell. When the bell rings, wake up, take the lesson, and leave the shame behind. This leads to a crucial realization about longevity. You cannot fuel a lifetime of consistency with self-hatred. Many people try to shame themselves into becoming disciplined. They believe that if they punish themselves enough, they will finally change their ways. But shame can only start a movement, it can never sustain a life. A person who is driven purely by disgust will eventually collapse under the weight of their own internal violence. Hatred punishes, but respect trains. Hatred tells you that you are worthless unless you succeed. Respect tells you that you are entirely responsible for your own life, and therefore you will act with dignity. You must become the wise leader of your own inner kingdom. A leader does not scream at the soldiers every morning. A leader provides clear direction, creates order, and understands weakness without ever allowing that weakness to rule. Be consistent because you fiercely refuse to abandon yourself again, not because you despise who you are. When you finally shift from self-hatred to self-respect, you unlock the ultimate truth about a disciplined life. Modern society teaches us a very dangerous lie about freedom. We are told that freedom is the ability to do whatever you feel like doing, exactly when you feel like doing it. But that is not freedom. That is slavery with better marketing. If you cannot say no to your own laziness, if you are a hostage to your changing moods, and if you blindly obey every temporary craving that visits your mind, you are not free. You are owned by your impulses. True freedom is having the absolute, unbreakable power to choose what is right, even when every feeling inside your body is screaming at you to choose what is easy. A person who can govern their own mind is the only truly free person. Consistency is the tool that breaks your invisible chains, one quiet link at a time. Do not wait for ideal conditions to begin your return. Ideal conditions are a fantasy for the weak. There will always be noise, there will always be delays, and there will always be unexpected problems. Do the work in the mess. Do it in the wind. Choose one single practice that points toward the person you claim you want to become. Make it small, make it invisible to the crowd, and make it absolutely non-negotiable. Your future is not a distant place that you are traveling to. Your future is a house you are actively building right now, with every small promise you keep when nobody is watching. Begin the return today. Choose the harder right over the easier wrong. If this message has awakened something within you, leave a comment below declaring the one practice you are committing to right now. Subscribe to the Buddha Coha channel to keep building your foundation, and remember, the pain of discipline is always lighter than the pain of regret.